This is a modified version of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics presentation on the 2018 Code of Ethics for the Nutrition and Dietetics profession. Please pull out a copy of the Code of Ethics and follow along as each of the principles are discussed. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and the Commission on Dietetic Registration Code of Ethics for the Nutrition and Dietetics profession establishes the principles and ethical standards that underlie the nutrition and dietetics practitioner's role and conduct. To begin, let's review the definition of ethics. Ethics is a discipline that is concerned with conduct and morals and helping us to distinguish between right and wrong. The four foundational ethical components of autonomy, non-maleficence, beneficence, and justice are integrated into each of these standards. This slide further defines the foundational ethical components which underlie the four principles encompassed within the Code of Ethics. Autonomy means that all individuals have the right to govern themselves. Individuals should be able to make fully informed decisions, meaning that nutrition and dietetics practitioners make all the pertinent information available for individuals to assist them when making a decision. This also means that individuals are not coerced into making a decision. Non-maleficence means that nutrition and dietetics practitioners cause no harm to the individual patients and clients. Harm refers to both physical and psychological harm. So we are to do no harm to our patients and clients. Beneficence encompasses taking positive steps to benefit others, which includes balancing any benefits with any risk. This means that nutrition and dietetics practitioners always act within the patient's best interest rather than our own best interest. And finally, justice refers to equitable distribution of resources and opportunities. In other words, certain groups or individuals are not more favored than others. While professionalism may seem straightforward, nutrition and dietetic practitioners may find themselves in situations that aren't always straightforward. In this case, a code of ethics can provide guidance for professional practice and decision making. Additionally, the Code of Ethics helps to define rules and norms for the profession regardless of the practice setting. The primary goal of the Code of Ethics is the protection of the public, including all individuals, communities, organizations, and population groups with whom the practitioner works and interacts. Additionally, the code can influence policy and ultimately improve professional practice. The Academy's Code of Ethics applies to all members of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, regardless of their credentialing status. This means that student members of the Academy must adhere to the Code of Ethics. Additionally, all CDR credentialed practitioners, so those would include registered dietitian nutritionists as well as the nutrition and dietetic technicians registered. This is regardless of their academy membership. So in summary, by accepting membership in the academy and/or accepting and maintaining CDR credentials, you agree to abide by this Code of Ethics. A little more now about the contents of the Code of Ethics for dietetic professionals. Go ahead and pull out your copy of the code if you haven't already and follow along. The code includes 4 main principles with 34 or 32 total standards. The principles can be mapped back to those 4 foundational ethical components. The first principle is related to professional competence and includes 8 ethical standards. These standards address the utilization of evidence-based approaches in all areas of nutrition and dietetics practice, the integration and application of scientific knowledge without personal bias, the collaboration with other professionals and disciplines while making referrals as appropriate, the recognition of limits of scope of practice, and being respectful, caring, and mindful of patients' and clients' individual differences, including any cultural or ethnic differences. The second principle stipulates the integrity in personal and organizational behaviors and practice that is supported by the foundational component of autonomy. This principle includes 9 ethical standards addressing the disclosure of potential conflicts of interest, compliance with laws governing dietetics practice, appropriate use and maintenance of credentials, appropriate citation and recognition of work of others, accuracy and truthfulness in communications, appropriate billing, coding, and documentation, and respect for patient-client autonomy and protection of personal health information. The third principle of the Code of Ethics highlights professionalism and includes 9 standards. These include standards on respecting others, assisting others, and communicating professionally in all forms. And the final principle of the Code of Ethics addresses social responsibility for local, regional, national, global nutrition and well-being, and includes 6 standards, addressing collaboration with others to reduce health disparities and to protect human rights, the promotion of fairness and objectivity, the promotion of respect, integrity, and competence of the profession, as well as the unique role of nutrition and dietetic practitioners who engage in those services that benefit the communities. So what happens when you think that a nutrition and dietetics professional has violated the Code of Ethics? First, you need to recognize that we have an ethics committee whose role is to make the Code of Ethics enforceable. The ethics committee is comprised of 3 members, each appointed to a staggered 3-year term. Any Academy member, non-member, or customer can submit a complaint to the ethics committee. However, anonymous complaints are not accepted. If the complaint is determined to be valid, then it is forwarded to the person against whom the complaint is made for a response. The complaint and response are then reviewed by the ethics committee and discussed in a private executive session. Based on the data collected, a resolution is determined. Possible resolutions include case dismissal, a request for more information, the issuance of corrective action, or revocation of the individual's credential. The final purpose of this presentation is to share with you how you can utilize the Code of Ethics in ethical decision making. Accusing someone, or heaven forbid, being accused yourself of an ethical violation is very serious. As shared by Alice Forneri in 2015, there are several steps to consider when determining if an ethical issue exists. First, we need to gather facts by asking a series of questions. Is this an ethical issue, or could it be an employment issue, or perhaps a business dispute? Poor business practices leading to unsatisfied customers or other types of business disputes are not necessarily ethical issues and therefore will not be handled by the ethics committee. Is the issue a legal matter? Ethical guidelines are different than laws. If a state or federal law has been violated, then it is a legal issue. The issue also can have ethical implications that could result in action by the ethics committee. However, not all legal decisions may be considered as an ethical issue. Is this a communication problem between a practitioner and a patient? Does it involve a disagreement between how an issue is handled by a supervisor? Is it a contract dispute? Philosophical differences in how someone manages a problem does not make something unethical. What are the facts? Is this a personal issue rather than an ethical issue? Personal disputes are upsetting, but not unethical. Identify any possible subjective influence, such as your own attitude towards a specific issue. Who are the key participants? Are they individuals or organizations? If individuals, who are they? Remember that only Academy members and CDR credentialed practitioners can be held accountable to the Academy's Code of Ethics. It is important to also remember that the Academy's Code of Ethics pertains only to individual practitioners, not to organizations. So after you have gathered all of these facts, the second step involves connecting ethical theory to the dilemma in practice. Are any of the 4 foundational ethical components being violated? If so, then we're going to move on to step 3. Step 3 involves identifying which of the 4 principles, and more specifically, which one of the standards from the Academy's Code of Ethics is associated with the ethical issue. It is possible that more than one principle may apply. Step 4 consists of identifying possible alternatives to resolve the dilemma, being mindful of any cultural influences or institutional values that might influence the decision. The decision made needs to align with the Code of Ethics as well as be within the scope of practice for dietetic practitioners. At the completion of this step, the final decision will be made. Identifying ways to prevent a similar occurrence are also a part of the process for working through ethical issues. Monitoring outcomes of the implemented resolutions will help with this evaluation. I hope that this brief adaptation of the Academy's longer presentation has been helpful and that you have learned a thing or two about our profession's Code of Ethics.